to you and welcome to Politics 101, another edition. Today's Thursday, of course, we're getting into the weekend, and I would like to welcome all of you, down, whether you are joining us from in Guyana, out there in Berbice, in the quarantine, on the quarantine. Um, some of our loyal followers and viewers are out there in the quarantine, number 51, 52, New Amsterdam. Whether you're joining us from West Berbice or you're joining us from Georgetown, um, West Side, or you're out there in the Sequibble, or you're from the East Coast, the part of the country that I'm from, Buxton, of course. Want to welcome all the Buxtonians down tonight. Whether you're joining us from in the interior, Region 1, Region 7, Region 9, Region 10, like to welcome everybody down. And or you're joining us from the wider Caribbean. Lots of Guyanese are in the wider Caribbean. Barbados, whether you're in Bar, Antigua, Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis there. If you have a chance, you want to follow what's happening in St. Kitts Nevis, they have a coalition of three parties which have been together, and they are in power now, the Team Unity. And the leader of the coalition apparently has not been behaving well and not treating the coalition as you are supposed to treat the coalition. And the coalition members have moved a vote of no confidence against him in Parliament. Lots of parallels there, similarities. If you're joining us from St. Kitts Nevis, welcome to Politics 101. Of course, if you're joining us from North America, United States, Canada. You know, when I was a schoolboy, we used to be asked that question, how many countries are there in North America? And, there's 3 countries in North America: Canada, the United States, and Mexico. Many people feel that Mexico is part of Central America. It is, but geographically, it's considered part of North America. North Americans, whether you're in Brooklyn or Toronto, Washington, D.C., whether you're in the Midwest in Chicago, Illinois, or you're on the West Coast, California, Arizona, welcome down. Of course, we also welcome our brothers and sisters from who are there in Europe. Lots of you are in England, of course, the old mother country. United Kingdom, that's the larger community there. Welcome down, and lots of Guyanese are in France, I know that. Paris, welcome. And those of you who are joining us from further afield in Africa, there are some of you there. Welcome everyone down on the evening. Big show tonight. Tonight I'm going to have on Mr. Aubrey Norton, the newly appointed. You know, we in Ghana have to be very careful because we don't have direct elections to Parliament. You're elected on a party slate. But the new opposition leader in the Parliament, he will be here tonight, and we'll be talking about a range of issues. The last time he was on a few weeks ago, he had not yet gone to Parliament and become the opposition leader. So He'll be joining us tonight. He'll be first appearance as opposition leader. We also heard today that former finance minister and friend of this program, Mr. Winston Jordan, was arrested this morning when he turned up at Suku headquarters. We're going to get a report and an update on that story from Kidaki, Amsterdam. So we have a big program tonight. Please share the link. Please, everyone, please share the link. Let everybody know that we are going to have a big program tonight. So part of our lives, part of our experience in this part of the world, in Guyana, in the Caribbean, is the experience of survival. We've had to survive. Among other things, the other morning, I was on Kedaki's Bostonian morning time. I think it was Wednesday morning. And I was taking on those who were saying that, Black people in Guyana are taking blows from the PPP and they're not doing anything. And, the usual story. And I was making the point to them that people are doing things. The very act of survival is in itself doing. And I made a reference that slavery did not end in a day, it did not end in a week, but people survived in the end to topple it. And sometimes we think of struggle as an event and not as a process. That even as you're struggling to make change, you're surviving. That's part of the human experience, is to survive. That if you survive, you're able to beat back. And there's no doubt that we're up against a lot in Guyana. It's not the first time that we're up against it in Guyana. We're up against a new form of authoritarianism, a new wave of authoritarianism within the context of potential wealth. In the past, we had authoritarian forms of government in the context of poverty. And now we have a chance to move from poverty to wealth and prosperity for the working people, for the sons and daughters of slavery, enslavement, and indentureship. And we have a new form of authoritarianism. So the challenges are enormous. And I can understand the frustration. People want everything to be done in a day. We must rise up, and revolutions there's no magic. One has to prepare. One has to be constantly struggling and surviving every day so that you can come back tomorrow. Man will survive. We will survive. And in the end, we will prevail, as we have always done. The capacity to survive suggests the capacity to overcome. Capacity to survive. One of my favorite calypsos, come from the Mighty Sparrow. One of my favorite Sparrow calypso, as you all know, I'm a student of the calypso art form, reggae student of Caribbean music and Black music. Sparrow, of course, the greatest calypsonian that we've produced. One talks about Sparrow and Bob Marley and Vivian Richards and Walter Rodney, and them representing that radical element of our Caribbean Sparrow has this calypso, Man Will Survive. Man Will Survive. We're going to take a short break, listen to some Sparrow. We will survive. Then when we come back, Kidaki is going to give us an update on what's happening there with Winston Jordan. And then we'll have the interview tonight with Aubrey Norton, leader of the opposition. The Slinger Francisco, Trinidadian via Grenada, Caribbean man, man of letters, one of our greatest talents, Man Will Survive.
Oh, la 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 la. From the beginning of time, reaching out to the sublime in a cold and hostile world. We have struggled to exist in this earthly wilderness, seeking an elusive goal. Many times it seemed that we are fighting a hopeless cause, implying extinction is our lot. Because we were constantly ravaged by scourges and wars. We tried to quarrel and complain, but in the ending up, believe it or not, we will survive. No matter what the odds, man will survive. Inspired by our gods. It's a hard road we travel, but to triumph we shall. We gon' toil, we gon' struggle, cause at the end of it all, whether you're big or small, Peter helping Paul, till the master call, we fight for survival. Oh, yeah. In pursuit of happiness, searching for material bliss, we have toiled unceasingly, giving off our very best. In this never-ending quest, we have sought increasingly. Disappointed by our friends and betrayed by conjugal mates, surrounded by crime of every sort. Ruin will never ends, and for us is a test of faith, emphasized by condemnation, penalized with retribution, but we will survive. Don't care what people say, I'm telling you, man will survive to see yet a brighter day. There's a mountain we're climbing, some will rise, some will fall. They'll be slipping and sliding, cause at the back of it all, metaphysical, deep and spiritual, till the master call, we fight for survival. Whoa, yeah. Modern day societies, melting pot communities, there are several rules and laws where the poor become subservient to the rich and affluent, or they show their fangs and claws. Divided by creed and race, it ain't easy to be free. No one knows for sure if we really can ever find an equal place and live as one family. Sometimes it's hard to find solution, but nothing conquers the will of man. We will survive, though times may be rough. Man will survive. We know how to be tough. So let nothing divide we. All for one, one for all. Feel the power and the glory, cause at the back of it all. Though we whine and ball, broken down dance hall, till the master call, we fight for survival. Whoa! Ba-da-ba-da-da-da-da. Hey, 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 yeah. Ba-da-ba-da-da. Coming through the dark ages, looked upon as savages, haunted by unrighteousness. Time and place and circumstance, and some people's ignorance, we have to face all kind of prejudice. Subjected to slavery, bound by economic chains, quick to hold but slow to develop. Daunted by redundancy, plagued by emotional pains, still for all we wouldn't stop. Cry surrender or give it up, no. We will survive as we have throughout the years. And we'll survive through pain, sorrow and tears, to ensure our existence, to walk proud, to stand tall, yet to humble in his presence, cause at the back of it all. Though we whine and ball, breaking down dance hall, till the master call, we fight for survival. Francisco. And just the number 7. The mighty Sparrow. Survival. Yeah!
We will survive. I think that's an appropriate message for us. You know, when you're up against it, as Sparrow says there, sometimes you feel the mountain is too high to climb and that you're not going to survive. But we will survive. We have survived in the past and we will continue to survive. We have to understand that political struggle is not fast food. It's not hamburgers and McDonald's, and it's something that you have to put your energies in. You've got to build a movement. When you're up against tyrants, you have to be able to build the kind of fortification that you first survive. And that if you survive, you will be there for victory. People are surviving every day. Every day, there are parents, poor people, who are surviving the economic onslaught. They put food on the table in spite of the difficulties they face. They send their children to school. Yes, they survive. There are those who would not want us to survive. Somebody is saying on the program here, they want to chase us out of Guyana so that we can leave it to them. But we will survive. Welcome to Politics 101. Welcome to Politics 101. I notice St. Lucia's in the house. I didn't mention St. Lucia in my introduction. One of my favorite, if not my favorite, Caribbean island. Spent a lot of time in St. Lucia. Welcome, Dong. You're joining us from St. Lucia. We will survive, inspired by our gods, inspired by our own history. We will survive. We want that message to be very clear, because everything is being done to knock us out. Arresting leaders, giving them a hard time. They're doing everything to kill our very spirit. Bob Marley himself said, they brutalize our very soul. When I hear the crack of the whip, my blood runs cold. They brutalize our very soul, but we survive the plantation. We'll always try to brutalize our soul. And that is why we respond to them with our soul. They try to brutalize our very soul, but we will humanize our soul. And we'll understand that victory is sweet. The harder the struggle, the sweeter the victory. Brother Bob, the prophet of emancipation. So, my brothers and sisters, do not believe that we have to try to break down some imaginary wall. We've got to steel ourselves. We've got to survive the PPP regime. We've got to survive external forces. We've got to survive the legacies of slavery and colonialism. We've got to survive so that our children and grandchildren can live in a Guyana that is not encumbered by poverty and want. Our generation has the task to finish the first objective of independence. And that is to wipe poverty from the face of Guyana. London is in the house. My brother Norman Brown and Miss Chapman and all the others who are joining us from London, from England. Wherever we are, we can contribute to the struggle. One of the things about contemporary struggle is that we are no longer separated. We are separated physically, but we can all contribute to that struggle in Guyana with the technology of globalization. The technology of globalization. Brooklyn is in the house. Canada, Toronto is in the house. My brother Colin Garnett from Canada, my schoolmate, classmate. We were past weekend, catching up, reflecting on our brother Henry Rodney, who will be laid to rest on Saturday. For those of you who are wondering, those of you in Guyana, the homegoing service will be held on Saturday. I think it starts at 1 o'clock at the tarmac of the National Cultural Center, thence to Bedford-Wacton BV for internment. Welcome, Colin Garnett, my classmate. Welcome. I see my brother Zap is in the house. Zap! These Buxtonians are called in large numbers tonight. Welcome down to Politics 101. We are going to be joined later on by Aubrey Norton, who is traveling from Berbice, and he will join us for the interview later on. But this morning, Winston Jordan, the former Minister of Finance, you remember a few months ago, they hauled him and tried to humiliate him and charged him with some nonsense that he signed off on some land that was sold to BK and trumped up charges. And this morning he turned up at Suku as part of the thing, they ask you to turn up and so forth. And when he got there, they arrested him. Now, one of the techniques that dictatorship use, like I said, they try to crush your spirit. They harass you, to break your spirit. And that's what they're trying to do with that brother. They're trying to break his spirit. Trying to break his spirit. So they arrested him this morning, and we are going to let me bring in Kidaki Amsterdam, who's been on top of the story, and Kidaki will give us an update. Good evening, my brother.
Good evening, Dr. Hines. Good evening, viewers. Thank you for having me.
Tell us what happened this morning with Mr. Jordan.
Well, what should I say? About 11:30 this morning, I received a message from Mr. Jordan via WhatsApp that he is at Soku detained. He went down to Soku as a result of the same BK issue you were talking about. Part of his $3 million bail arrangement was that he report to Soku once a month, I think. And so, in keeping with that arrangement, he reported this morning because he has court tomorrow. When he reports to Soku, he's usually made to sign a book to say, well, he reported and, is obviously in the jurisdiction and so on. And so he reported this morning in keeping with that arrangement. And was told there and then that they're not going to be releasing him. He's not free to leave because they need him to assist in another investigation. An investigation which has something to do. Well, at the time, he said they didn't really tell him what the investigation was about, just that they needed him to assist in the investigation of another matter. And so basically he was under arrest. He stayed there several hours, eventually got his lawyers, and after that number of hours, he was released and has to report to Soku on Tuesday again. Now, according to Mr. Jordan, he did suggest to them when they said that, they were going to detain him with regard to this new matter and investigation. He indicated to them, look, man, I have court tomorrow. I'm preparing for court tomorrow. There are things I need to do today. Why not leave this to Tuesday or next week, Monday, sir? And they say, no, we have to do this now. We want to do this now. You can't leave. But at the end of the day, he was released and told to return on Tuesday for the continuation of that investigation. It is his opinion that he was released after they recognized that, again, like previously, the thing was having a toll on his health because his blood pressure was starting to rise and his heart rate was increasing and so on. I heard you say it is the way of the oppressor to try to beat you down or wear you down and break his spirit. I think the PPP is out for Mr. Jordan's life.
All right, you come to that. The spirit is your life. Without the spirit, there's no life. Did they indicate to him what is the new matter that they're trying to investigate?
Well, yes, loosely, because I had a brief conversation with him. I'm hoping that next week, maybe around Monday, I will be able to get him to talk with us in depth on what the issues really are. But it's another land-related issue with NISIL. Something to do with the signing of a vesting order, which he, as Minister of Finance, had to do with Cabinet's instruction. Cabinet instructed that he signed some vesting order, which he did. Soku, NISIL failed, according to Soku, to collect perhaps full payment for the property which was being vested. And so they are basically blaming Minister Jordan for that, whereas he is not the person responsible for collecting on these contractual arrangements that NISIL enters into with private individuals or whoever they decide to transact business with. And so in actuality, one could say that he was or is being given basket to fetch water and is being tasked with responsibility that somebody else has.
If you're part of cabinet and the cabinet makes a decision, you're acting not in your personal capacity. You are acting in your capacity as the government of the day. And so therefore, one, I can understand, the cabinet being criticized for whatever wrongdoing. But if we start here now, criminalizing individuals, well, where do we start? Where do we end with this? Where are we going with this? Where we are beginning the process, setting the precedence of making individuals in a government scapegoats for what we think are missteps by a government. And I think this is the matter, this is the case that is before the court. My sense is that case is not going to stand up in court. It is not going to stand up in court. So the issue here is not about going after government wrongdoing. The issue here is to engage in the politics of revenge in the politics of assault on people who serve in government. To say to young people not to get into politics, because if you get into politics, this is what is likely to happen to you. And so I don't think they're interested in winning a case in court, but you lock a man up, and every 6 months, you come up with something new to charge him with. Then you're playing with that person's life, as you were saying. You are trying to beat that person into submission. You're trying to get that person to come to you to beg you, please drop these charges. You are trying to reduce that person to a non-person. And I think that is what the PPP is after. Because that case, those cases, are not going to stand up in the court of law. Your view?
Well, certainly, looking at the manner in which the PPP behaves or has behaved and continues to behave, the fact is, Jack the only like to behave like they're gods. I, as you were talking about them wanting people to go and beg, let's go right back to the Mark Benchcap by no treason charge. Jack Dio basically wanted Bino and Jack Dio, Mark Benchcap, or more so Mark Benchcap, to beg pardon, right? To be released from prison. Right now, I heard in relation to the advisor to the new leader of the opposition, new leader of the PNCR, Aubrey Norton, Dr. Van West Charles, threatening to withdraw his services from Aubrey Norton and the PNC. I understand it's a case of basically him being forced to broker a deal.
But we don't know that, and I don't want to discuss.
Well, Aubrey Norton said that.
I don't want to discuss rumors. I don't want to discuss rumors on my program.
I am not saying. Dr. Hines, this is no rumor. I am saying, Dr. Hines.
I don't want to discuss that on my program.
Very well, I will not discuss it. I will not discuss it, but I'm using it as an example of what the PPP does. The PPP has a way of beating you into a corner, and so that you're going to go and genuflect to them and beg their pardon. That is what they're doing with Jordan. Jordan is an educated and I would say credible critic of the PPP. He has always, since the PPP got into office or were placed into office, whatever it is the description, he was always able to bore holes into their policies. Every Thursday morning, he was here discussing their inadequacies. And they were able to perhaps silence him with that first charge in the BK matter. And now that it seems as though they're not going to be able to get their way in court with that one, they're looking for a new way, a means of controlling him. It's as simple as that. And the history of the PPP throughout their time in office and their existence, if you ask me, it is that kind of attitude that they have. Let's go to Linden, for example, with the dismissal of all the medical staff and ancillary staff and so on at the Linden Hospital Complex. Rudy Small issued letters to dismiss so many people. And what's his name? Rode in like the knight in shining armor and said, no, don't dismiss these people. And so he is seen as a saving grace. That is how the PPP behaves. And that is what they're after. They are hoping to get Mr. Jordan to go and beg their pardon and in the same breath silence him so that he cannot criticize and bore holes into their policies.
Yes, and that is indeed a part of the modus operandi of the PPP, whereby they criminalize you and then force you to grovel. And that is part of what those who feel that they're superior always try to do. In case you're just joining us, it's Politics 101. We are waiting on the opposition leader, Mr. Aubrey Norton to join us. He's traveling from Berbice, and we hope that he gets to his destination shortly, so he would be able to join us. In the meantime, we are discussing the recent arrest of Mr. Winston Jordan, who was this morning detained by Suku and told that they want him there because they're investigating some new charge. Kidaki is joining me here, and we are of the view that the PPP is not interested in these cases going to court. They're interested in using the police in order to beat up on the opposition and to beat down the opposition. And it's a technique that authoritarian regimes throughout history have used. And so we just want to alert you to that. There is another issue, Kidaki, that you have been following. That is the issue of the young policeman who was found sleeping at the residence of a PPP big boy, and the big boy proceeded to humiliate the young policeman, who we understand is facing disciplinary measures. Bring us up to date on where that issue is, please.
You know, Dr. Hines, I want to know if you read minds. The last time I asked you if you're a Wobia man.
Yes, I am.
Because let me tell you, just as you're talking there, I just received the document. And I'll read the document and then I'll continue the discussion. The document says, breach of discipline. And it's dated the 22nd of April. Address the constable, whatever the number, Gilbert. You are hereby informed that I'm investigating a report of breach of discipline made against you, in that you on Thursday, 21st April 2022, about 15 hours, whilst performing duty at Mr. Harry Gill residence, armed with one AK-47 rifle and 37.60 by 3 mm rounds, failed to perform your duty with diligence. That is to say, you were found sleeping on duty. Contrary to Section 4E II of the Police Discipline Act, Chapter 1701, you are hereby informed of your rights under Section 5(3) of the said Act to refuse to make any oral or written statement to me unless you so desire. Signed by V. Looknot, looks like Sergeant with a number. Everybody certify that I received a true copy of this notice from Looknot, blah, 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 blah. Good. Now, this is the charge, as they call it, that is being investigated. The young policeman has been charged for breach of discipline, in that while he was on duty, around 3 o'clock, they found him asleep. But what many people are not aware of, or should be made aware of, is that this young man was asleep, having performed several shifts without relief. And when I say several shifts, he was reportedly on the job for about 20 hours. Now, those who are familiar with police standing order will know that once you are an armed sentry, you are not supposed to be on a shift for more than 4 hours. Every 4 hours, an armed sentry is supposed to be relieved or rotated, whatever the term used. And so if this young policeman was there for 20 hours, it means that he was working for 5 rotations without being relieved. Not only wasn't he relieved, but his superiors were responsible for taking nourishment to him, food, having recognized that he was not going to be relieved. And so for several hours, for several shifts, they did not take food to him, they did not take water to him. And eventually when the food and water was taken to him, the food was sour. Of course, as a sensible human being, he refused to take it. He refused to eat it. But he was still left at the duty station. And so after not eating for several hours, I rather suspect exhaustion and so on stepped in. And what they are calling sleep is simply a case of the body shutting down, if you call it involuntarily. So you went to sleep involuntarily and was in a deep sleep, maybe close to coma. So the medical people might be able to explain it. Low insulin and all of that, whatever they call it, low sugar and everything would have taken control there. So he was really in a medical state, quite frankly. I'm not a doctor, but that's the explanation I got from medical people. And that is why it was so difficult to wake him in the first place. And so having awakened him, but before awaking him, the very person that he was placed there to protect saw it as his opportunity to take videos and photographs and so on, either along with someone or facilitated the process and posted them to Facebook to show that this man is supposed to be on duty and he is asleep, and it is so difficult to wake him because he is so sound asleep. And that is the whole story there. But I dare say that that is not just a matter of posting a sleeping policeman to say that he is sleeping on the job. I believe it is a part of this whole campaign to like neighbor and say, look, y'all are good for nothing. Y'all ain't got no purpose. And so as it is right now, the policeman stands charged and he's obviously going to be made answerable. Let me also say that the question was asked earlier in the week, what about the police union to represent him? The police union in this instance is the police association. The police association is led by Prem Narang, a known PPP hack. Prem Narang became the chairman of or president of the police association through a contentious electoral process, right? And just yesterday, I think Prem Narang issued a statement saying that all this brouhaha around the issue of this policeman is political and it is sensational. And they're currently investigating with a view to ensuring that the policeman's well-being is taken care of.
That's the report there on that ongoing matter with the young policeman. And the good thing is that these things are coming out into the open. We may not be able to do anything about them because it's a police matter, internal matter. But it shows the kind of discrimination that goes on in these institutions, where young people are subjected to all kinds of what we call in Guyana advantage taking. And we often hear about the big things that happen in politics, but often the small things are the ones that don't come to the fore. Thanks to social media, thanks to technology, they're now coming to the fore. Let me say this: some people. Yes, go ahead, Kidaki.
Guys, let me say, I generally protest when I hear nothing can be done about these issues.
I understand that. I understand. I understand.
Please allow me to finish my statement.
But I understand. The fact that we are on this program talking about it is something. When I say
something outside of that,
hold on, you're gonna get a chance just now. When I say that nothing can be done about it, what I mean is politically. The fact that it's exposed is a big thing. Because what that means is that the police is not likely to do that again tomorrow. Because they know that those things are being exposed. As I said at the beginning of the program, political action is not hamburgers, it's not fast food. The exposure is doing something. But anyhow, get your point.
All right, let me go back to say that to believe that the police is not likely to do it again anytime soon might be utopian. Because this followed shortly on the mistreatment of Shannon Ballers. right? It follows shortly on the mistreatment of Shannon Bollers. And I can tell you that every day, a policeman or a policewoman is abused by their superior in some way, shape, or form. What I wanted to say in this particular issue with this young man, yes, we may not be able to do something politically about it in the true sense of political action. But I think that what he needs is, if he doesn't have the resources, for some lawyer to step forward and guide him in a pro bono way or with whatever arrangement, and ensure that he makes a complaint against Harry Gill for cyberbullying. Because this is cyberbullying, right? And while the police was quick to charge Sheriff Duncan for cyberbullying because he called somebody Jagabat and Trench Crapo and so on, this is a typical case of cyberbullying. A ministerial advisor videoing or recording, whatever you want to call it, somebody who starts with protecting him and his family and placing them on social media in, I would say, one of the most vulnerable states, right? Will result in ridicule. It will result in psychological issues to that person. Just as Aubrey said that he was being psychologically affected, I think this here will have a serious psychological impact and health impact on this individual. And so he should pursue it in the court of law as a cyberbullying matter.
I completely agree with that suggestion. Somebody's saying there that what is the matter with Dr. Hines? People have a right to say what they want. It is Facebook. You're sounding like Barra Jack Deal. People have a right to say what they want, not on my program. Not on my program. There's an issue with two Black leaders. One said something, the other one said something. I am not using my program to exacerbate a fight between two Black men. I am not doing it. There are certain things I stop at. I know it's nice red meat to hear Van West Charles and Norton fight one another, and you will get a big crowd and cheering on the fight. Not on my program. I'm not into that business of promoting any fight between two Black leaders, right? So that is why I asked my brother Kidaki to leave that matter alone, all right? I am not taking away anybody's right to say what they want on Facebook. You can say what you want on Facebook, but not on my program. Let me say this. I am not in the business of socializing Black people to behave in ways that they are accusing other people of behaving. If the PPP is behaving terrible and stink and dirty, I am not socializing Black people to behave stink and dirty. There's a way you rise above stink and dirtiness, not by you yourself becoming stink and dirty. We have to set an example and set the bar high for us. There are ways and means of struggling against injustice. Nobody has to teach us about that. We've been doing it from the time the Middle Passage to now. And we don't have to get stink and dirty in order to make our point. So I just want to make that. I am not against others if they want to take their programs in that direction. I am not taking mine in that direction. I feel that we have a right to stand up and to struggle with all our might, but not to become stink and dirty like others. Eric, welcome from St. Kitts in the house. Like I said, lots of political action in St. Kitts and Nevis there. People, if you have the time, you should see what's happening there. Lots of parallels to Guyana. My friend Menis, the griot, says African people, the poor and the working class, will not get justice in Guyana until they unite Old people say there are more than one way to skin a cat. Actions speak louder than words. My brother, I couldn't agree with you more. What the PPP is doing is they want to drive back people to this point of desperation where we behave nasty and we behave bad and we behave terrible. We carry on. I don't have a problem. There are times when you have to behave bad, nasty, and terrible. I know that. But what I'm saying is that's not the only way to struggle. There are other ways to struggle. Let our intellect and our wisdom overcome stink and dirty. God bless us as Black people with profound wisdom. And we must use it as part of our struggle and not succumb to that which is the lowest and succumb to the base. Please, I am begging you, my brothers and sisters, let us be an example. Let us be an example. Norman Brown say, Dr. Hines say it as it is. Young Black men and Black people in general are facing these atrocities. Look, good night. Good night. Good night, Denise. Audrey Brown, good night. Good night. Good night to all of you. We're waiting on Brother Aubrey. He is on his way from Berbice. There was an emergency there today that he had to rush up to Berbice to deal with, and we are waiting on him. What I will do in the meantime is we wait on him, we're going to open the phones so that we can get, it's a long time since we got some of you to give your views, open the phones so that you give your views on some of these matters we are talking about. Brother Kidaki?
Yes, I'm here.
You shared something that a citizen sent to you about something that he or she senses happened at the Georgetown Hospital.
Yes.
Is that a matter you want to raise publicly?
Well, certainly, I think I started raising it on my program this morning. The viewers on my program this morning knew that we had hell. This morning, this morning was a terrible time. But last night I received a note from a usually reliable source who feeds me reliable information about what's happening in the healthcare sector. And it's a damning thing. This is about a young lady who, a wife, a mother, who went to the Georgetown Hospital for a surgery. The surgical procedure took place. Of course, viewers know that usually when you're doing surgeries, especially the type, you have to be sedated. After the surgery, when she regained her consciousness, she felt soreness in the region of her vagina. Surgery had nothing to do with that part of her body, and so she became concerned and she raised it. With medical personnel there, she raised it with her husband. At first, the medical personnel, to some extent, tried to, get her to disregard it as nothing. But with the insistence and guidance of some others, a rape kit was done. And based on the findings of the rape kit, it would appear as though she was sexually assaulted while under anesthesia. Now that's a matter of real concern, and it ought to be a matter of real concern for citizens, because the hospital is one of the last places you expect to go and get raped. It says that somewhere in the system there, failures have taken place. First and foremost, the recovery nurses. Where were the recovery nurses? Where were the theater nurses? Because as we know it, as I understand it, once procedure is taking place, nurses are supposed to be there assisting and observing. And when the patient remains sedated, nurses are supposed to be present also to monitor the recovery of that patient. And so for this individual to be raped while on a sedative, having gone through procedure, raises serious concerns. First and foremost about the staff. Where were these people who were supposed to be looking into the interest or looking out for the interest of this sedated patient? And secondly, is it that we have a sick soul, a pervert, perhaps a serial rapist on the staff of the National Hospital, as in Guyana Public Hospital Corporation? And so I think this is a matter that needs urgent and thorough investigations to determine what really transpired. The question that is at the back of my mind is this the first time that this is happening? Will it be allowed to happen again? Will it happen again? If I believe it will happen again if thorough investigations are not done and systems are not reviewed to ensure that such failures do not take place again. In terms of the health of the patient, one has to ask now, because I'm reading, I understand that one of the things which convinced those who are part of the investigation that this woman was sexually interfered with was the gushing of semen during the examination. And there can only be semen if, at least that's my understanding, if it was unprotected sex. And so one has to ask, is this person sick? Is it an HIV positive person? And all kinds of questions. What are the additional risks that this young wife and mother is now exposed to?
You know, it's an individual incident, but we cannot isolate that individual incident from where our country is.
Certainly not.
Guyana is becoming a sick place. You see, once you have a government that is prepared to tolerate wrongdoing, so long as that wrongdoing helps them, then people in the society, sick people in the society, will feel freedom to engage in sickness. That is sick. And you know the question of rape? Guyana is a rape society. And you know, and that is why I'm saying a lot of times we reduce politics to party, cussing Jagdio, cussing the PPP, and we lose the human side of politics. That is politics. That accusation there. And that kind of thing, I'm afraid, happens very often. This one has come to light.
You know, permit me, if you will.
Yes.
When you said it's an individual incident, I had cause to reflect. And like you said, these things happen when a government allows lawlessness to happen that benefits them. When you look at when you look at sexual allegations being made against a sitting minister of government and nothing's being done about it, that aids and abets. But if you remember several months ago, or a few months ago, there was an arson at the Georgetown Hospital. An arson report, a doctor was arrested for arson or was being investigated for arson. That very doctor was accused of raping one of his colleagues. And it was basically covered up. Up until now, that matter, as far as I know, has not been ventilated in the public. I've not seen that doctor charged and placed before the court. But this allegation was made. by one of his colleagues that he practically raped her. And so, reflecting on all of these things, Georgetown Hospital perhaps has a rape culture.
It has a rape culture. You know, these things happen at the Georgetown Hospital. I'm sure it's happening in the police force. I'm sure it's happening in the army. I don't want to beat up on the Georgetown Hospital. I want us to reflect on where lawless politics have an effect on defenseless people, working people, poor people. And that's why I say to you all the time, I say to you, our viewers, all the time, that we have to look at politics broader than party politics. Because so many of our ordinary people have become victims of the nonsense. And that is why when people are saying that we are doing nothing, you know, many women have to protect themselves and protect your children every day in that country from beasts who know that when they finish doing what they're doing, they can go to the police and give the police bribes and they get off. So you go, you rape, and when you finish rape, you give the poor little girl some money, and you go to the police and you give the police some money, and we have a government that leaves Black people to do it because they feel that that is what we are worth. And when Indian people do it, when Indian men do it, they cover up for them. It's a sick country.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Kidaki.
You know, the system, I sometimes ask myself how I am able to walk around with so much information. I become like a burden bearer of bad tidings. Because so much information comes to you. Just last night, I received again a set of information accusing a senior policeman, a commander of a division, of basically holding a female at ransom for sexual favors. I learned in the course of the week of a 50-year-old, I think, giving birth. And the statutory, is that what we call it? Statutory rape. Yes, the statutory rapist being arrested to be placed before the court and released by a senior police mere hours before his court date. And then ranks are advised to, y'all take this man to JP and have him make a document to support the well-being of his child and the mother, instead of him facing the court system. The system aids and abets these kind of abuses because it is how connected you are to power.
And that's the point we're wishing to make here. We have just gotten word from Mr. Aubrey Norton that he has gotten to his office. It's now 20 minutes to 7. I'm going to make a decision whether I will have him come on for the next 20 minutes, or we may just have to just push the program to next week, Tuesday or so. But in the meantime, we have a caller. Caller, come on, you're on Politics 101. Hello?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. You're on Politics 101.
To Kadaki, right? Something is bothering me right now is about I have seen in the media that the VP is saying that NIS is cash up and we don't have no money to increase right now. I want to know if this guy got a heart when they took NIS money to invest in the Borbis Bridge, right? what happened to the profit from the money that they invest into the bridge at Barbies? They took NIS money to do that. So why can it be refunded or the profit go back to NIS? But that's my contribution, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Kiraki, you have any insight on that matter?
Well, yes, I intend to discuss the NIS fiasco tomorrow morning on Boxoyo Morning Time. Join me. The program starts at 6 o'clock. I will come on live about 7 o'clock. But let me say in short that the call is right to ask the question, because NIS didn't become bankrupt today. NIS was bankrupted under the PPP. The same Jack Dio-led administration took NIS's money and they invested it in the Barbies Bridge with friends. Right? Up until when the coalition came to office and even when they were forced out of office, the bridge was not paying back any of that money to NIS. NIS, as far as I know, was the only shareholder in the Barbies Bridge that was not receiving dividends at the end of the year. And that situation obviously continues. The coalition had made efforts to bring NIS out of the doldrums. Under the same Winston Jordan, which they're fighting right now, I think there was an agreement entered into. I will find the records so I can discuss it in depth tomorrow. But there was an agreement for the government of Ghana to repay NIS through bonds. Those bonds were to be 3 or 4 in number, but I think at the beginning of every year, a certain amount is supposed to be paid to NIS. Right. So to hear this announcement from the very person who bankrupted NIS is sickening to say the least.
I think we have a response to that on that issue from MP Valden Lawrence. Mr. Operator, if you have it there. We have in the audience Mr. Aubrey Norton. He's in the audience. He's listening to the program, watching the program. I just came off the phone with him. He wants to come on to make a statement and to apologize for not being here at the beginning of the program. But let's hear from Valden Lawrence first. While we are waiting on that, there we go.
I wish to respond to the utterances of VP Jack Dio, who seems to be suffering from a healthy dose of amnesia when he faced questions by a resident of Bath Settlement on Wednesday afternoon at one of his purported outreach as it relates to the non-increase of NIS benefits for retired workers. VP Jack Dio responded by saying, and I quote, "You know the NIS is bankrupt." And further went on to say that this was due to the downsizing of the sugar industry by the coalition government. VP Jack Dio, who destroyed the NIS, attempted to sweep under the carpet his abuse of power generally, and more directly his abuse of the resources of the National Insurance Scheme. VP Jack Dio must be reminded that under his watch, the plundering of the resources of NIS was done. May I remind him and pensioners of NIS, also current contributors to NIS, and the world at large, that it was this very VP who, despite the advice from the board of directors of NIS, including Guyanese with experience in financing and investment, proceeded to invest the members' monies in the Berbice River Bridge, the Clico Insurance Scheme, and the Park, among others. It was VP Jagdeo who invested $2.5 billion of NIS monies in ordinary shares in the Berbice River Bridge. He further invested another $810 million from the NIS resources into this bridge in order to cover the non-performing assets in this entity. By his actions, this caused the resources of NIS to be further depleted. One must also not forget the Clico fiasco, again, involving VP Jagdeo and the NIS funds, whereby some $5+ billion was invested. And we all know the fiasco of Clico, which was placed under judicial management in 2009 and subsequently was liquidated in September 2010. I wish to remind VP Jagdeo that it was the combined opposition in the National Assembly by its very majority who voted and passed a resolution for the liabilities of NIS to Clico to be paid off. And may I also remind him of the commitment by his administration to honor that resolution. But you know what? It was never done. Rather, it was that same combined opposition which formed the coalition government in 2015 and granted payments to Clico.
Aubrey Lawrence there responding to Jagdeo. I'm reminded here by y'all at the down. I'm reminded here by Marcus, Dr. Hines. Don't forget next week Tuesday is the part 3 program of the IRI and the United the State Department report. All right, so we'll have to put Mr. Norton to Wednesday. Boy, I love this. Thanks, Marcus, for reminding me that next week Tuesday is Behind the News, and we're going to be discussing the State Department report. So, Aubrey, you got to come on Wednesday, boy, not Tuesday. But it's good to be in the audience and hear what your people, some of the comments, that they are making here. Kedaki?
Present.
Is there any other breaking news you want to share with us, your demand, with all the scoop? Is there any other scoop you have for us?
No, not that I want to discuss now. What I have for you is a voice note that was sent to me intended for your show. So let me play it so that viewers can hear it. And let me tell you, every time Politics 101 is on, I think you need to advertise the numbers more frequently because the viewers keep sending your voice notes to me. Hear this one.
Good evening, Kadaki. Good evening, Dr. Hines. A fish rots from the head down. If the damn government in Guyana, the head of the government is corrupt, the entire country is corrupt. It stinks to high heavens.
It stinks to high heavens. Before I leave, because I know it's program time, let me remind you that it's not everybody is seeing Lang Pans as a big man. I saw a video yesterday with Jagdeo instructing Ejel, not now, sit down. You're only disturbing. That's the respect you get when you are a token Negro in the cabinet of a racist government. Don't fall prey.
Oh my goodness me. It reminds me of a calypso by Pink Panther in Trinidad. Wade Mark was the token in the UNC government, and Pink Panther said, you know, the people misprint his calypso He said, Wade Mark is a good man, but the people say Wade Mark is a stooge. I am not calling anybody a stooge, but when you are tokens, that's what happens. I want to thank everybody for coming on down tonight. On behalf of Aubrey Norton, who only got in for the last half an hour of the program, I want to apologize for him not being on tonight, but he will be on next Wednesday. Next week, Tuesday, of course, we are going to be dealing with the State Department report and on corruption and so forth. Ernest Elliott, good night, my brother, Ernest. Good night to all of you. Tabitha Sarbo Hali, we have a lot of big boys and big girls here tonight. They come out in their numbers. Ingram, Campbell, good night. Alex Powell, good night. John C. Paul, who is a regular of Politics 101, good night, everyone. C. Paul said, please pay attention to what is happening at the Tocqueville Secondary and Primary School, the electrical problem. All right. I tell you what I'm going to do, what we're going to do from now on. We're going to have Kidaki come on regularly and to update us on some of these matters that we don't get to deal with. So in that sense, Kidaki becomes our roving Politics 101 correspondent. Come on regularly to give us some of these breaking news, because these are not things that we tend to get to. That matter at the hospital there is sick. The matter with the young policeman is beyond sick, you know, and what they're doing to Minister Winston Jordan, it's really too much. Anyhow, please, you all keep the faith, up the struggle, because we will survive. Good night, have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you all next Tuesday.
Please help keep Politics 101 on social media and broadcast television. If you are in North America, please donate via Cash App or PayPal.
If you are in Guyana and the Caribbean and don't have access to Cash App and PayPal, email your pledge to dhines6106@aol.com and we will direct you how to get your donation to us. Thank you in advance for your donation.